You are listening to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KCZW-LP Conroe and 106.1 KZCC-LP Conroe and worldwide on irlonestar.com.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Extension Hour. I'm Amy Ressler, County Extension Agent, Family and Community Health. And so this is the Extension Hour. We talk about all kinds of things related to Extension. And we are really happy today to have, I think, just an amazing person with us. So Sandy Edwards, welcome. Can you say hello and introduce yourself?
Well, thank you. I'm Sandy Edwards. I live here in Conroe, Texas, and probably have been involved with Extension for more years than I care to count, but it's very nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
You are welcome. Thank you for being here. And then we also have Brandon Gregson, our County Extension Agent for Agriculture. And Brandon, you look very nice today. I said that to you in the office earlier. So yeah, you like like in your starched shirt, all logoed.
We match. We're both maroon.
I know, but I'm like all casual because, well, today...
Very sporty looking.
Very sporty, that's right. AgriLife is my team, and I'm representing my team today. So on the Extension Hour, we focus on our people, our programs, our partnership, and like I said, I think Sandy Edwards is one of our great people, and you do lots of programs with us, so we want to talk about those today throughout the hour. But before we get to that, let me mention a couple of things that are coming up. So we're going to talk about the 4-H program because you were a 4-H volunteer for many years. But one of the things that that is happening in 4-H now that sometimes surprises people. So we do actually robotics, and if you're interested in robotics, we did a show a few weeks ago with Justin Sines talking all about the robotics program. But he's got a 4-H STEM lab night coming up. So that's going to be they're going to do some Halloween experiments. And did you get the privilege of being a part of his experiments the other day? He was like running around the office.
I came in the other day after setting up for, I guess it was grounds maintenance, and there was something that they said was a pond weed on my desk, and I couldn't identify it, and turns out, well, it was one of his experiments.
It's like the vampire veins or something.
Like some type of weird algae, but it ended up being some kind of goo that he came up with. So,
well, he also,
I'm glad I didn't call a specialist about it.
They would have questioned, what's going on there in Montgomery County? And so he also came in. He had like this bag underneath his arm, and he had a glove on one hand, and he was like, "You want some sparkling soda?" Like, I don't know about this, but it was just some juice that he put some dry ice in, and watched it bubble. But anyway,
fun.
Yeah, it's all about teaching science experiments to kids. So he's going to have kits available where they'll be able to do like literally hands-on stuff. So that's that'll actually be at our Master Gardener building, or technically it's called the Tom Leroy Education Building, but we always call it the Master Gardener building. That's kind of what they use often. But it's right there next to our offices. So at 9020 Airport Road. It's going to be on Tuesday, October 29th, and it will start at 6 p.m. So if anybody's interested in that, it's open, obviously to 4-H members, but to anybody, because this is one of those things, sometimes people have a certain idea about what 4-H includes, and this is maybe a little bit out of that box of what we think about 4-H. But STEM, as we know, stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. Wanted to say education because we say education a lot. So, 4-H STEM Lab, Tuesday, October 29th, 6:30 p.m. And if you're interested, you can call the Extension office. We've got several numbers, but one of them is 936-539-7825. Ask for Justin, and he can tell you all about what'll be happening that night. So, and then it's still a good time to join 4-H. Fair is coming up soon. All of those good things. But let's talk a little bit about the agriculture program. Let's talk about the Beef Improvement Association, because that's one of the things that Sandy is currently involved with. So what does Beef Improvement Association even mean?
Let's start with you, Sandy.
Just start with me, okay. This is an opportunity, I know, as families raise animals, maybe with their kids, and they fall in love with that venue. They want to raise more, and they may not always have the education for that. So through our wonderful, ag extension agents, they put on programs, and we, give them ideas. There's several of us on the board, and try to just educate families on how to be good stewards of whatever they're trying to raise. And ours, of course, is beef. It's open up to all counties. You don't have to be from Montgomery County to be part of the association. And if you have a breed of cattle that you're raising, we advertise in a small little book that you can put out there so that if people want to purchase your animals, there's that opportunity. But it's an educational way for families and ranchers to understand some current things going on in the beef industry, to know what our beef quality assurance really means, and it's just a good little thing for our county.
All right. So beef quality assurance, what does that mean, Brandon?
Well, basically, best practices. One in particular, we're going to have a program on in February the 1st, would be over proper injection site protocols. There's a right way and a wrong way to give shots, whether you're people or your livestock. You want to take that in consideration. The right, proper placement of an injection, whether it's under the skin or in the muscle or whatever. Ultimately, your livestock, not only do you love them as, your livestock, but they're going to be a consumer product at some point. And so when they're harvested and turned into a meat product, you want to not have blemishes in the meat, messed up muscle tissue, and just, humaneness of doctoring your livestock. You want to make sure that you've done that correctly. But it doesn't just limit itself to injection sites. There's proper handling and,
Hay, for instance, there's a lot of producers. There's a lot of producers out there that graze their cattle or bale out of hay. What is weed identification? These clinics just they informed us as a family, and most of these classes are free, and it's open to anybody. So if you really need to know what's going on your property, no matter if you have 3 acres or 300 acres, there's information out there for you.
proper weed identification, grass management. If you have a pond, there's always going to be something with your pond. Something's growing in my pond. What is it? And so how do we, identify that? And is it something we need to take care of or not take care of?
And that decision would be based on, so when we're talking about beef improvement, the pond and how it might affect your cattle operation.
Water supply for livestock, or loafing spot during the hot summer months, But again, in terms of those workshops, fence construction, it can be equipment management. Lots of different things, just a huge array of different things that would come up. Tax evaluation for your property, and how your cattle fit into that, or hay production fits into that. Just lots of different things that come through the ag program. Ultimately, the Beef Improvement Association is usually a sponsor for most of that stuff.
So how often does the Beef Improvement Association meet?
As needed, and it depends on if we're in a planning cycle for programs. So, you might meet really heavy in the springtime several times to plan programs throughout the summer, or in the late spring and summer, and then again in the fall to plan for some different things. And again, like I say, there's crossover between our Beef Improvement Board members and our Replacement Heifer Project that happens through the Fair Association. So there's also all of these things going on with replacement heifers that they're involved in too. So there's multiple, meeting needs there.
You're going to learn, and you're going to learn something new. And the kids, as they get involved with their projects, adults get involved.
Sure.
And it's just really a great family opportunity.
Right. And you guys had a big annual meeting just a few weeks
The 26th
ago, right?
of September.
Yeah,
Right.
so about a month ago, yeah. And tell us what happened at that meeting. What was the...
Well, it's their annual meeting, and it's a call for membership to get together and have a program, have a meal. That night we talked about sprayer calibration because, when we're talking about weed and brush management in our pastures, that usually involves some type of control, chemical, mechanical control. So if it's chemical and we're using herbicides, we have to know proper calibration for our sprayers and whatnot and how to manage those things. So that was one of the programs. And then they also talked about weed management, some herbicides and things like that night. And it was a chance for a lot of those guys are license holders for pesticides, so they also accrued some hours at continuing education hours toward maintaining their licenses that night, which is something we try to do at every program.
Sure.
So,
And you know, the opportunity we have, we were just mentioning this on Thursday when we had our meeting. We're so close to A&M, and you're not getting speakers in here that, you know, are running, you know, just on their thoughts alone. These are professors that come in. These are students that are majoring in these areas, specific areas. So what you're learning is the primo stuff, you know. So it's wonderful. And Sam Houston brings in a lot of speakers for us that are the top of their game in that area for agriculture.
Yeah. Extension is all about helping
It's
Texans make their
wonderful.
lives better,
Yeah.
but really the research-based, science-based information is the tenet of everything that we do. Yeah. Okay, so we mentioned you mentioned some pesticide applicator, so they were able to get some CEUs there.
CEU
But
hours.
you just had a big grounds maintenance conference.
yesterday. Miss Edwards was there too.
Yeah.
Getting some hours, and that was one of those. We have some big opportunities where they can get, 5 hours, which goes a long way. They've got to earn like 15 hours in 5 years, so you can knock out a big slug of your needed hours at a couple of programs over here, and that was one of them. Got 5 hours, and that's a program that's really geared towards county maintenance workers, landscapers, but we also have some ag producers that come in there too, because some of it's really relevant to them, like the aquatic vegetation management.
It was
and
perfect.
Even fire ant control. We talked about that, and leaf cutter ants are a big deal right now, and so there's a lot that kind of crosses over. So that's one of the programs, and we'll have one coming up in December that's another 5-hour program, but it'll be targeted toward livestock and more agricultural folks.
Sure. And so we're going to take a little bit of a break, but when we come back, we'll talk more about what does this really mean to just the average listener. Yeah, the pesticide application, cows, how does this affect my life if just the average person listening? So we'll talk about that when we come back. You're listening to the Extension Hour right here on Lone Star Radio 104.5 and 106.1, and it's on online irlonestar.com. We also have all the shows are podcast, so you can go back and listen to some of the ones previously. But we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Family and community health programs provide science-based education designed to improve the overall health and wellness of individuals, families, and communities. Developed by experts and delivered locally, topics include child and adult health, nutrition, child care, financial management, passenger and community safety, and building strong families, all encouraging lifelong health and well-being for every person, every family, and every community. We are Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, helping Texans make their lives better.
Remember to download the Lone Star Community Radio app from your Google Play Apple Store. Bring Montgomery County's community radio with you anywhere with your smartphone or tablet. If you are in the Conroe area, tune in on FM 104.5, 106.1. If you are on your computer, bookmark irlonestar.com as your internet radio station. Lone Star Community Radio, broadcasting 24/7 from the heart of downtown Conroe, Texas.
What can the Better Living for Texans program do for you? You can learn how to increase your consumption of fruits and vegetables, choose foods that are relatively inexpensive and good to eat, make your food dollars last longer, prepare quick, nutritious meals, help your children learn how to eat healthier snacks, and much more. Our program is committed to helping people like you improve your health through providing research-based nutrition education in a friendly, cost-free, and relaxed environment. We are Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, helping Texans make their lives better.
Hey guys, this is Connor.
This is Dick.
This is Chris.
And we're with the Ticket Stub Podcast every Thursday live at noon on 104.5 and 106.1 FM in the Conroe area. Also, anytime at irlonestar.com. You go to irlonestar.com/TTS. You can find all of our social media.
And don't forget, we give away 2 tickets to the Grand Theater on every show.
If you like movies and you like complaining or celebrating anything that has to do with the silver screen, check out the Ticket Stub Podcast and join us every Thursday at noon o'clock on Lone Star Community Radio.
What is homelessness? Have you seen parents struggle to find a job without having transportation or childcare? What about the children sleeping in cars with nothing to eat? Families shouldn't have to struggle to survive, and children should not be homeless. Family Promise of Montgomery County serves the needs of homeless families and their children. Learn about ways you can help and learn about partnership opportunities at www.familypromiseofmc.org or call our day center at 936-441-8778.
Hey y'all, it's DJ Mike from Dan Simon, Texas. Join me Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. as I count down the top 10 Texas Red Dirt songs that are packing the dance floor. I'll be featuring local artists and the story behind the hits, shows in the area, as well as new songs that make you want to dance. It's Dance Time in Texas with DJ Mike on Lone Star Community Radio, 104.5 KCZW and 106.1 KZCC, Conroe, Texas, or online, irlonestar.com.
And welcome back. This is the Extension Hour. Amy Ressler. I've got Brandon Gregson with me, and we also have the lovely, wonderful, talented Miss Sandy Edwards with us today. Thank you so much for being here, Sandy. So we're talking all about extension. So this is the Extension Hour, lots of different topics, people, programs, and partnerships. And, Sandy, you're just kind of a little bit of every one of those. You're one of our volunteers.
I'm a dabbler, yeah.
You've been a volunteer for many, many years. So started out as a 4-H volunteer, and now you continue to also help with 4-H, but your kids have grown out of the program, and now you're doing some stuff with the Beef Improvement Association. You're also a member of our Leadership Advisory Board, which is very valuable to us in terms of helping us direct all of extension work. So, definitely I know that you're very valuable to Brandon and the Beef Improvement Association. But, we have a leadership advisory board that helps us, like where all of those type of extension things come together. And we were talking a little bit in the break, one of the things where extension things come together is a program or an initiative that we're working on that's it's funny, it's sort of a new concept, but it really totally makes sense. And it's sort of what we've been doing all along, but we've really just recently put a name to it and made sure that we made that connection, and that's the connection between agriculture and health. So I do family and community health, Brandon does agriculture, and we've kind of, I guess in the past, maybe agriculture just does their thing, family and community health, we used to be family and consumer science kind of did their thing, but now we're really focusing on kind of where those things intersect and how one affects the other. So, when we're talking about beef and part of our food supply, that is one of the places where it really comes in handy. Speaking of food supply, before I get ahead of myself too, I got to tell you what's happening in the horticulture department. So, they grow vegetables, also other plants, that kind of thing, ornamentals. But we have an open garden day that's scheduled November 2nd, and that's hosted by the Master Gardener Association. But we also, several of us are out there highlighting some of the other parts of what we do in Extension. So it's a great opportunity to come see our building, see the gardens all around our building, all the demonstration gardens. It's open to the public, 9 to 11, so it's come and go. I may be lying on the time. I think that maybe they might have made an adjustment to it. But we will know that for sure. Next week, Sharon Walker is going to be here, and she's the chair of the Education Committee for the Master Gardener Association. So we'll talk about that in more detail. But November 2nd is the day. So Saturday morning, November 2nd. And then I was talking to Michael Potter, who is our horticulture agent, and he mentioned that he's getting lots of calls about large patch, which is happening in lawns and among grass. Yeah. So he does a weekly column in the Conroe Courier, and that's a great place to find information. So he said he just recently wrote one about large patch. So if you want to know more about that, that's a good place to read. And then maybe next week we'll talk about that too. And maybe in the future we'll have Michael Potter with us to talk more about some of the common questions that they get related to horticulture. So but today we're focusing more on the agriculture end of it. So we've been talking about the Beef Improvement Association, basically just helping, like the ultimate goal, right, is
Education.
and related to food supply, that the beef are available for food supply. Usually, I mean, that's the ultimate goal of
Ultimately-
most of them, right?
Ultimately, they become a consumer product of some type and kind. You know, that's ultimately what they are. If you have ever been to an ag awareness program where one of the sections is focused on beef cattle, this is where ag awareness and Path to the Plate kind of cross over. Path to the Plate goes a lot more in depth, but when you take the cattle section and you go to teach these kids, you teach them. There's a form that highlights everything. It's called Everything But the Moo, and literally everything on an animal, a cow, is harvested, but the moo. I mean, the hooves, the hide, the meat, the bones, medications made out of different parts of the animal, even tires, paint brushes, jelly beans, marshmallows, all the different things, you know, milk, cheese, all that, you know,
Right.
the standard stuff, but the things that you don't consider. It all goes into the food chain, whether it's something that we need for nourishment or it's something we need medicinally. They really help us in a lot of different ways other than just feeding us, you know.
Sure,
So
sure.
it's a consumer product.
Yep. I remember in one county that I was in, we would do an ag awareness field day with the elementary. It was a smaller county, and my station was, when is a cow more than a cow? It was pretty cool. Yeah.
Right.
It's shocking how many children don't realize where their hamburger came from.
Yeah, yeah, from the grocery store.
Yeah.
Just
Right.
go pick it up and take it home, right? Okay, so when speaking of consumers and food supply and whatever, we were talking a little bit earlier, you were mentioning part of the education is proper injection sites and that kind of thing. And so I can see someone who doesn't understand all of the aspects of growing cattle and how it does get into the food supply or consumers through all those other things that you were just mentioning. There could be a little bit of a, what, they're injecting our cows? Let's talk a little bit more about that.
Well, when we talk about injection sites or injecting cattle, ultimately a farmer or rancher doesn't want to give a shot, you know, just like you don't want to get one. We don't want to give one either.
Right.
It involves, you know, taking them out of the pasture, putting them in a pen, and having them where you can actually give that injection site. And it costs money to do that. Medications cost money. So there's a lot of work on the front end to keep your livestock healthy to not have to do that. But ultimately, something might get sick. And when it does, you know, from an animal welfare standpoint, they need medicine to help them get over it. If they come down with pneumonia or step off in a hole and you know, pull something, they might need something to help them get through that until they can get well and go on about their way. But in terms of injection sites, the bottom line is we don't give them unless we absolutely have to. We try to do everything to avoid that.
When you think about their environment that they're in, you know, they can be in, you know, our heat we had this summer, you know, so where are they hanging out? These cattle need to be cool. So a lot of them do head to the water tanks. They'll stand wherever they can be cool, but their environment sometimes dictates, you know, how we treat them and keep them healthy. So.
And so, like we were talking about in terms of injection site management, making sure that we teach people, if you have to, this is the proper way to inject a calf. This is where it happens. This is how it has to happen. This is how much, because there's labels that you have to adhere to. And all of that is related to the consumer product. You know, ultimately, this animal can go into the food chain. And not only do we want to, from the animal welfare standpoint, do it correctly, but we want to make sure that ultimately, if it goes into the food supply, that there's nothing there that would be detrimental to human consumption.
Right,
So,
right. And then when we talk about farmers that are raising these animals and caring for them in the food supply, they're often also eating those animals. So they're not going to give them anything that's going to make their
Right.
family sick. And even, so I've heard arguments too about, well, that's, you know, the big manufacturers, they don't eat it, but they
do.
eat it as well. Yeah.
right.
There are standards that have been set up, I don't know how many years ago, but, and you abide by those. If you want to have a good rapport with the market, you abide by those standards and what they expect you to do with the cattle to keep them healthy.
And if you don't,
Then-
it's a loss of business and ultimately a loss of your livelihood.
Sure.
For instance, Path to the Plate program, we went to the Panhandle this past, June, and we toured one of the big feed yards, Cavaness, I believe is what it was. And to understand the standards that go into the processing, there's really no stone left unturned, and there's no protocol that's left undone. I mean, there's nothing that slips through the cracks. Everything's handled with precision. The animals are treated unbelievably. I mean, just like
Unbelievably well.
yes,
very
unbelievably
humane.
well.
Right.
And actually, it was mentioned that the McDonald's Corporation is top tier in terms of from the time it leaves where it originated to the time that it's on the shelf, or given to the consumer, it is handled a certain way, and if not, it's not part of their product.
Right. And I'm glad you bring that up, because I heard someone say that they read on the internet that the sick cows are the ones that end up at McDonald's, and that's how
No,
they're able
no.
to make their hamburgers so
That's
cheap.
actually
Yeah.
just the opposite.
Yeah,
They don't.
could
they
not
do not
happen,
go
yeah.
into the food chain.
So what does happen to those?
They basically, once they're put down, they might be rendered for pet food, could go into dog or cat food, something like that, depending on what they were down from. But there's still a lot of usability in that animal, even if you're not consuming it, or even if the pets aren't consuming it. There's still medicinal products. The hide is still able to be valued. A lot of the blood goes into different products as well. So
It's shocking how much, every inch of that animal is used.
it's not wasted.
Yeah.
So
Which is good environmental stewardship.
yes,
Like our farmers, I think, are the ultimate environmental stewards
right.
with what they do with the land that we have. So another thing, so if we can kind of switch gears for just a second here, you mentioned replacement heifers. Tell me what that means.
Do you want to talk about that?
Sure.
That was I know that
We
was a
can
weird
both,
shift,
but go
but
ahead.
yeah.
Well, it's everything it says it is. You're replacing a good cow in your herd with a young heifer. A heifer is a bovine that's never had a baby. So a cow would be one that has had multiple births. So you're replacing her because she's lived her life and she's done well. So you bring in something young. And we have a program for the county fair. It stems on a commercial basis, but there are registered animals that kids enter into this project, and they raise an animal. They feed it. They calculate how much feed they use. They calculate everything about this animal for 9 months about. And they bring that animal to the fair, and they do a record book. They basically try to see what their bottom line is. Did they do well in feeding it or not? And then they show this animal. And the replacement heifer is just a wonderful educational tool for these kids. Brandon and the replacement heifer committee sets up, probably about 5 different clinics during this time of this project, and the families, the kids go out and they learn. You could probably tell me, more
Well,
of the meetings, what they do, but I
yeah.
mean, it is just tremendous education on how to raise this animal. It's a large animal.
Yeah.
We'll have one Tuesday afternoon out at P6 Farms. Mr. Poole's going to host us out there, and the vet, Dr. Schmidt from Navasota, is going to come out, and he's going to teach the kids and the families about vaccinations. What, if any, vaccinations do these heifers need? No different than vaccinating children, They need certain things to help protect them and build immunity to things. He's also going to talk about some reproduction, pregnancy testing, things like that. But that's the kickoff first workshop, I guess. And then throughout the year, we'll have one on marketing. We'll have one on showmanship, because ultimately they do show these at the fair. We'll have one over health and nutrition. We've got the one in February to, if needed, proper injection sites, where to, how to, that kind of thing. One over record books. There's lots of different things. So we tagged them in the second week of October. They'll show them the first week of April. So they're keeping immaculate records, hopefully, during that entire process to show their project on paper, and then ultimately they'll exhibit their project in person. So,
And at the end of that project, after they show, they then sell their animal. So the economics of how they've cared for it, fed it, all enter into this, and how to, sell your product at the end.
Sure.
So.
Okay, so we need to talk a little bit more about those kinds of things and the 4-H program. We'll talk more about cows and beef and heifers and all those kinds of things, but we're going to take a break, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes with Brandon Gregson and Sandy Edwards.
You're going to need me.
You're going to need us.
All of us.
You're going to need our help with your water, your air, your food.
You're going to need our determination, our compassion.
You're going to need the next generation of leaders to face the challenges the future will bring.
And we promise we'll be there when you need us.
Today, 4-H is growing the next generation of leaders.
Lone Star Community Radio is looking for those who are interested in hosting their own talk show. With monthly and weekly slots available on Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and on irlonestar.com. Start your own podcast, create your first YouTube channel, and be on TV. Contact Lone Star Community Radio online at irlonestar.com or call the station message line at 936-647-3776.
Lone Star Boxer Rescue is a nonprofit organization serving Montgomery County and surrounding areas, dedicated to the health and well-being of the boxer breed. Lone Star Boxer Rescue is run and managed 100% by volunteers since 1999. Our main objective is to rescue, rehabilitate, and rehome boxers that come to us from many sources, including local animal shelters, owner surrenders, and strays. For more information about Lone Star Boxer Rescue, visit our website at lsbr.org.
Hey, Montgomery County and online listeners. Thank you so very much for checking out Jazzy Vibes with Soul. What? You haven't done so yet? Well, you've got to tune in. Hi, I am the host of Jazzy Vibes with Soul, Miss CeCe Holmes, and I invite you to check us out every Friday and Saturday from 7 until 9 p.m., where you will get the best in old school R&B and, of course, a little smooth jazz to make it jazzy. So tune in. That's right, tune in every Friday and Saturday right here on Conroe's 104.5 and 106.1 FM or worldwide at irlonestar.com.
And we are back with the Extension Hour, all about our people, our programs, our partnerships, just to mention a few things that are coming up. So we talked about yesterday, you had the grounds maintenance conference, but you also have another one coming up in October that's just private pesticide applicator training. Mm-hmm. So sometimes people can't go to the big events because it's all day, so they just need a couple of hours, and they can contact you, Brandon, to find out more about that. So tell us a little bit about this one that's coming up.
Well, the one that you're talking to is actually next week, I believe. Yeah.
October 24th, and, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m.
It's a training for those who want a license.
So haven't had one.
They haven't had one, and they think they want one, so they're going to come and sit with me for 4 hours during the morning of the 24th, and they'll watch a series of videos and listen to me talk about the do's and don'ts of herbicides, pesticides. They'll just it's a training, and when they leave, I'll certify that they've been trained, and the rest of what they do will be through Texas Department of Agriculture in terms of obtaining that license. That's when it starts accrual of hours, and that's when they come to like yesterday's conference or the one in December, or we have a lot of different shots to get 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours throughout the year to help keep the number of hours they need over the course of 5 years before they have to renew it.
Right.
So,
And so this is for anyone who might handle pesticides. So they have to go through a lot just to be able to get a license to do that.
Absolutely.
And then they have to go through a lot just to be able to keep that license. And so we were talking a little bit too about food supply and some misinformation. And there's some misinformation out there, surprisingly, about the use of pesticides in foods and that kind of thing. That also is one of the things that we try to address with Pass to the Plate, just making sure that people are aware of what that means. So I just, an important takeaway for anyone listening is that when we're talking about using pesticides, it's not just people spraying poison out wherever.
highly regulated.
Yes, yes. And just like we talked about, farmers don't necessarily want to give their cows shots or whatever. We don't necessarily want to use a lot of pesticides. We just want to be able to keep the food where it can be consumed by people before it's consumed by pests, to animal, bugs and that kind of thing, bugs and disease and all of that. So, Sandy, you have a pesticide applicator license, yeah?
Yeah.
Had one for a while. Yes.
One in my family.
So you're it.
I am
and you're,
it.
Yep. And so tell us about your personal situation. So how many cows do you have?
We have right around 200 head.
Yeah.
Outside of Montgomery County. And they keep us busy, keep us tired. But it's very rewarding, and we love the hard work. We do it all. We bale our own hay. We feed out our own calves. So it's just very rewarding.
Sure. And then where do your cows go?
Our cows, they go to market. They go like most anybody else does. We ourselves, we do not use any kind of hormones or anything. We do feed them. We do give them healthy vaccinations. If somebody does get sick, that one is kicked out. It does not go where the rest of them go. And we just try to be as good stewards as we can, with them and raise them the best we can.
And you were mentioning, do you grass finish your?
We are not
cow?
grass
Okay.
fed. I mean, they are
They're
grass fed.
yeah. Right. So, that's another common misconception, right?
yeah.
So all cows are grass fed. It's just kind of
Sure.
how they're finished that makes
Sure.
the difference, right?
Yeah, you can't have, and you can correct me, Brandon, that you can't have a grain supposedly in their diet if they're grass-fed totally. Ours are natural. They do have some corn in them, some in their range meal, but they do not have any hormones or anything. They grow to the pace that they grow at.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned natural. One of the presentations that I do often for groups that ask for more information, we have a presentation called Do You Know What You're Eating? And it's all about labeling, basically, a food. So you get the nutrition label that tells you what's in that product nutritionally, but then there's a lot of other information on our packaging, right? Because consumers are looking for certain items. And so natural is one of those things that they're looking for. Some consumers look for, and there's not really a specific definition or a legal definition for natural at this point. I mean, that could change in the future, but another way to find out good information is just kind of talking to farmers and what they do and how they do it.
We have forms we have to keep. We have records we have to keep. Not as extensively as those that are organic or grass-fed.
Yeah.
Totally, so.
Yeah, the organic farms, those go through like extremely strict regulations too to be able to be called organic.
anytime you're putting a specific label on your product, you're going to be regulated to some extent. Organics, it's so much that some people don't even want to mess with that.
Sure.
But even the grass-fed, I mean, you have to adhere to certain standards to be called that.
Right.
So, or natural. So.
And then it would be important just to mention too that there's not a whole lot of nutritional differences between a grass-fed or an organic or a non-GMO. Nutritionally, they're the same. There are some taste differences though, right?
Yeah. That's for sure.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about that.
I love the taste of meat. I love the taste of steak. And I do like the taste of that good fat. And a lot of it is because of corn or some grains put in their diet. I think it's all depends on the person,
Sure.
you know, whatever they're wanting. But
It's a preference.
It's a preference.
If you put a grass-fed steak and a grain-fed steak right here next to each other, you would see some differences if you're a steak connoisseur.
Yeah.
There's some color differences. There's going to be some fat differences probably in terms of the amount of marbling or whatever's in there. And then when you grill it, there's going to be a difference in taste. It's I don't want to say gamey because it's not gamey, but it's just there's a different flavor of a 100% grass-fed calf versus one that's been finished out in a feed yard or on grain.
Right.
So grain-fed tends to be a little whiter fat, very, very bright white, and then strictly grass-fed fat tends to have a little bit more color to it, maybe an off-white.
Yeah.
So.
And then you get into genetics, which is a whole nother program.
Yeah. So we can save that for another one.
Yeah.
Because Brandon's just like, don't ask me.
That's a whole nother show.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so you had mentioned, I guess we could shift gears again. Like you love hard work and the hard work that you do at the farm, but you've been doing lots of hard work for a long time. So you're a mother. You've got three strapping young men.
I had 3 boys. We joined 4-H basically to raise a small animal. We thought we would let's raise a hog. That would be a small project. We never did raise that animal, but we did learn that 4-H has so much more that you can learn from. And back in the day when we started, we had no internet. I know, does that date me or what? But there was nothing. But the extension office had periodicals that you could go and read, and we didn't always have. Not all 4-H clubs have project leaders for certain things, and so you would step up to the plate and go, oh, okay, I'll teach that because your child might want to learn that particular project. So you just sort of, learn that way, and you learned along with your kids. And then if it was a project they really were thrilled with, you just fed that. You fed that enthusiasm.
So what kind of projects did your boys do?
Of course, they did beef. They did calf scrambles. I was thinking we did 13 calf scrambles.
Wow.
Which is through the major shows in Montgomery County. They did consumer education. They did poultry. They did food and nutrition because I wanted my boys to also learn, where their food came from and how to cook. Y'all need to cook.
Right, so they can feed themselves.
Yeah, that's right. Leadership I thought is probably the most rewarding in 4-H because at a young age, kids are able to get up in front of their club and give the Pledge of Allegiance or talk about what they did that weekend. And it gets them used to speaking in front of a crowd. So just wonderful opportunities.
Sure. And that's paid off for your kids as well, right?
It was great, yeah. If they stay in and really pursue something, there's great reward at the 4-H level. So,
tell me about a calf scramble. Because I'm just thinking to someone who doesn't, there's a lot of things that we talk about in extension and 4-H that we just go, oh, everyone knows what that is. But, I'm just thinking that someone that doesn't know, that's not familiar with the 4-H program, that could sound kind of funny.
You can, I'm sure that's one of the bigger things in Houston at the livestock show is to see these kids go out and they all are anxious to put a halter on a calf and haul it across the ring. And that's probably the easiest part of the project. To do a calf scramble project, you're giving funds to go out and purchase a heifer, and you raise it and bring it back the next year. But the biggest part for me and for what I wanted my boys to learn were their record books. And again, you keep stringent records on what you fed, what you did throughout the year, and you create this volume of information and take it back. And you market your animal while you're there. You speak to the public about your animal. And if you're lucky, you get some scholarship money or, some reward.
So it's kind of a fun way to get funding support to be able to raise an animal because it's not cheap. So it's not that they keep that calf in particular, but they just go they try to chase down a calf, which is fun to watch to begin with, because there's several kids chasing several calves, but there's fewer calves than there are kids. So the ones that are able to catch one, they get some funding support so that they can put that into a project, right?
They pick the breed of their choice.
Okay.
You know, whatever that might be.
And we have some kids that, you know, for instance, say you don't have a big pasture. So you think, you know, I could keep a calf, but I can't long-term keep a calf. So I don't have a cow herd to turn it back into. So we do have some that'll do the calf scramble, and that'll help them get the funds to purchase this animal and go through the project and everything. And then they'll also enter it as a replacement heifer in our replacement heifer program. And then that gives them an outlet for then this heifer can go on and be a cow for someone else, you know, who has a pasture.
Right,
You know,
right.
so calf scramble's a big deal. I did it back in the 90s here. So
You have a picture on your wall, right?
I've got my
Like for-
shirt hanging on the wall. It's cleaner now than what it was the day I calf scrambled, but yeah. And calf scrambling's not always easy getting out there and catching that calf. Sometimes they're a little tough, but she's right. I mean, the work really starts once you catch one and get going with it. So
It's one of my boys, after they had gone off to college, they were in whatever class he was in, and they were having to really keep documents on a certain deal, and they were working when he goes, Mom, it's just like doing a calf scramble record book, you know, the amount of work they had to keep up with. And he said, I'm so glad you had us do that. I'm like, yay.
right.
Gold star for you.
So, and I think the most important thing here too is that they're learning, you've mentioned a lot of life skills that they're learning through this. So it's something that they enjoy doing, but it's teaching them skills that are going to last their entire
you never
life.
know where that learning opportunity will take them.
Right. So whether it's to become a farmer and continue raising animals or not, there's a lot of applicable life lessons that they can take with them.
One thing that we did not have when my boys were in 4-H is this robotics, which I think has just grown by leaps and bounds in our county. And a lot of our kids are doing this, you know, the engineering skills, beginning thought process of, I don't know, they use Legos and they
Decoding.
have I mean, it's just amazing
Right.
what they're learning.
And the task that they have to do are related to agriculture, so it's one way to teach using robotics in agriculture. Because I, you know, if you can think about farming just in a really traditional way, but technology is a huge part of
there are
farming.
tractors that will drive themselves
Yeah.
via satellite. So
And the drones that'll.
The drone will let you know how much moisture is in your field.
Yeah. And so just a couple of weeks ago, we had Justin Signs, and we were talking about the robotics program. So if anybody's interested in that, that's one of the shows that you can go back and listen to. It's, I want to say September 27th maybe was the date that we did that, but we talked pretty extensively about what the robotics contest include and how to get involved with it and that kind of thing.
I had mentioned that my boys did food and nutrition, and it was very minimal what they did, but you would fix a meal or you would fix a particular item, and then you would sit in front of a judge and describe what you made and the nutrients that were in your food item. But now, with all of the cooking shows on TV, it's interesting to see. I forget what the name of those different contests are, but
like food challenge.
Food challenge,
challenge
yeah.
and things are just really great for the kids. If that's where their heart lies, then you want them to be involved in that.
Right. And then again, they're learning life skills, having fun, not really realizing that we're teaching them life skills, right?
Undercover education.
That's right.
But it's all fun. It really is.
So speaking of fun, why is it that you volunteer? Why do you continue?
I guess you don't know how to stop. I don't know. It's I love Extension for what it has taught our family, what it's taught me. If I can give that back, I'm happy to do that. You know, whatever it is.
Right. And we had a conversation not long ago about recognizing volunteers and appreciating them. And you said that you're one of those that you do it because you love it, not necessarily because you're looking for recognition. And I think that that's true of most of our all of our volunteers. But And I know that you don't necessarily like public recognition, but I just want to say thank you for everything
Oh,
that you've done
my
and that you
pleasure.
continue, because you're like a legend in our extension
Right,
office.
yeah.
That's true.
Sandy Edwards.
I have the right color hair. It's been fun.
Yeah, and speaking of recognizing our volunteers or appreciating our volunteers, we do have an event that we have coming up. So we're going to talk about extension. We're going to have a taco night. So we're inviting volunteers to come have dinner with us, and like literally we're going to talk about extension. Eric Zimmerman, who's our district extension director, is going to come out. So we're going to call him the Big Cheese, which he's going to be embarrassed about, but he's going to like that, isn't
Yeah,
he?
he'll like
yeah. So anyway, he's going to, kind of give more of a district and a state perspective of extension and kind of how our volunteers here in Montgomery County fit into the district and then fit into the state. And, we think that Montgomery County is the best county in the state, but throughout the county, throughout the state, we have such
Oh, we're
fortunate
fortunate.
volunteers. Yeah,
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
sure.
we are so fortunate to have you folks.
Oh, thanks.
Nice.
Oh,
I mean, really, people don't understand how fortunate, because so many counties don't have but maybe one
Yeah.
extension agent.
Yeah.
And they have to do it all,
Yeah.
and you don't necessarily get the leadership or
It's
the
spread
guidance.
really thin.
Yeah.
It's hard. So
Yeah.
we're fortunate in Montgomery County.
Sure, and we appreciate our Commissioners Court. They do provide some of our funding. Some of our funding comes through the state legislature, through the A&M system, which is something that people sometimes misunderstand. It does not come from the university, but through the system. And then we also get some federal funding through USDA. So we we are very fortunate, very, very unique organization.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And have unique volunteers. And I thought that I saw a look on your face that you had a few more things that you wanted to say, and then I interrupted you.
Oh, well, that was 5
I know.
minutes ago.
I know. Put you on the spot there. We were talking about why you volunteer and just the
I
importance
think
of
that's,
it. Yeah.
I think most parents, they do volunteer because their children are involved. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're involved with your children, you have a better idea of where they are and what they're doing.
Sure.
That's one thing with 4-H. It is a full family organization. It's, you don't just send your children off, to some meeting. It's a total package. And there's something out there for everybody.
For sure. Yeah. So if someone wanted to raise a cow, what would you tell them? Or
Well,
raise cattle?
we would
cows
start with the why,
Yes.
and I tend to be very black and white and very upfront with people that want to jump off into something, a big project like a calf. This isn't. I mean, while the care and maintenance is, you can have some similarities to your home dog or cat, but we're talking about a calf here, and then different set of facilities and different type of care and maintenance, and what's your goals along this project? What's your end goal? Very important. It's very rewarding. It's a great project to have. I started from a baby loving cows, and I still do, and I've reaped all the benefits from them. But it doesn't come without work. Very rewarding work
Yeah,
in the end.
you don't just leave them alone.
Right.
You don't put them in the front seat of the car.
But there's a lot of questions to ask. I start by asking a lot of questions when somebody comes to me with any project they want to start.
And so someone who lives in town, regular house, wants to raise an animal, it's not automatically that they can't do it. There are some additional questions that need to be asked, but I mean, that is something that they can do too, right? Yep.
Yep.
So if someone wants to find out more information about raising cows, just in general, I keep saying cows, just like, because I'm, but in general, if they wanted to raise cows, how would they get a hold of you? Who would they contact?
Yeah.
Brandon Gregson,
I was worried I was going to be
G-R-E-G-S-O-N.
late here because I was on the phone with a guy that was wanting to get started raising cattle. And so we had a lot to talk about, and this afternoon I'll call him and we'll talk some more. But I take a lot of phone calls like that,
Yes.
and if they have something specific, that's one thing about our volunteers. We have special volunteers, but they're very specialized, so sometimes I'll even refer them to some people, like
Right,
Sandy.
right.
So
So you can call the Extension office, 936-539-7825. It's one of them. There's others, 2422. Anyway, 539-7825. We can get you connected. And also, you mentioned all the great resources that we have at A&M. There's lots of websites where you can find all kinds of information without, just in case you can't get a hold of Brandon right away, because he does stay busy. And then we talked a little bit about Path to the Plate, and there's actually a website it's called Path to the Plate, .tamu.edu. So there's information there about those kinds of things that we've been talking about, connecting agriculture and health. And with Facebook pages, there's lots of ways to get more information. And then if someone was interested in becoming a part of the Beef Improvement Association, what would they do?
Call us. We'll get them hooked up.
Okay. So any last thoughts you want to share?
Not really. I think we've
done a really good job.
All right. Thank you so much for being here, Sandy. We really appreciate it. So we'll be back next week. We're going to have some master gardeners. We're going to talk about some gardening things, and we'll have a really good time then, sharing about our people, our programs, our partnerships. This is the Extension Hour. We're here on Fridays, 1 to 2 p.m. We'll see you soon.